The last time you were on the show, you said this was a grand time to be alive. We've had since then fires, floods, wars, political turmoil. Would you still say this is a grand time to be alive?
You can change a whole city with just some 10, 12 dedicated people who are unwilling to get caught in the simulation of separation. I was having a great conversation with Rabbi Rouse. She gave a great story of how she decided to enter into this pact with herself to make sure she knew her neighbors, regardless of what the political persuasions were. None of that mattered. And she goes out and she sees a guy across the street. She's been living there 10 years or so. She never even spoke to the guy. So she says, "Hey, how you doing?" And he says, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, they start to have a conversation, and he knows she's a rabbi. And he says, "What are you preaching about this week?" She says, "Oh, I read this beautiful article about the epidemic of loneliness and how to overcome it." And he says, "What article?" And she breaks down the article. He said, "I wrote that article." Right this moment, there is a solution for every issue. And at some point, it's going to explode. So what we're looking at is,
are you ready to shine? Shine bright. Woohoo! Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Uriel. Higher self, higher team, on all angels, guide, and light workers, here for our highest good and the highest good of all. Please help me to help Michael today. Please help us to help humanity today. Please help us to shift consciousness today for our highest good, for the highest good of all, or something even better. Woohoo! Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered if the world's coming apart and how we rise up from here to emerge at a higher plane, then do we have the Dr. Michael Beckwith, famed speaker from The Secret, best-selling author, and the founder of Agape and the Take Your Mind Back podcast show for you. So welcome back to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine?
Brother Michael, it's always good to be with you on Inspire Nation to just see how the Spirit of the Living One takes over and allows us to have this beautiful conversation. It's my joy to be with you as always.
Well, Brother Michael, Reverend Michael, it certainly goes both ways, so I can't believe I'm going to start things this way. The last time you were on the show, you said this was a grand time to be alive. We've had since then fires, floods, wars, political turmoil. Would you still say this is a grand time to be alive?
Oh, absolutely. That doesn't, what's happening in the world of appearances and the decadence, that which is out of cadence with that which is emerging, does not damper my enthusiasm nor my cautious optimism, because I'm keenly aware that obviously an optimist is not a person that puts their head in the sand and pretends that nothing's going on. But a spiritual optimist knows that there's a solution to everything, every issue that's happening, and that it's already embedded in our psyche, in our consciousness, in our spiritual wherewithal within us. So, yeah, I still see the emergence of something magnificent. I still see this moment as a combination of the death of an old paradigm, and for those who are deeply ensconced in their spiritual work, we're beginning to see us more as midwives to something that's seeking to emerge right now, and without denying the fact that it's a very difficult time for many people on the planet right now, politically, obviously, and otherwise. So yeah, I'm still aware that that progress is not going to be thwarted by people who think they're in power. I call it pseudo power, you know. And I think it's an interesting note too that dictatorship and tyranny and tyrants cannot exist in the field of love. That when individuals are really opening their hearts up to love and compassion, it creates a field that tyranny cannot last forever. So I think with all the great work that people are doing on the planet, we're seeking to keep that field alive and to make it even more intense at this time in human history, with pseudo power is seeking to turn back the hands of time, turn back the clock, it's very important that all the work we've been doing over the last 40 or 50 years is amplified. So we have to stay out of fear. We have to stay out of hate. We have to stay out of resentment. We have to stay out of animosity. We actually have to do this at this particular time. We have to really go deep into love and to the harmonic of peace in order to create a vibrational bedrock for the emergence of the next stage of humans, you see. I know I
Thank
just
you.
said a lot there, but
You did, and I'm gonna thread the needle with our audience. And I, guys, I ain't political. I ain't a red. I ain't a blue. I'm not even a purple. I'm a zebra.
I'm with you, man.
No sides on a damn brown planet, okay? And at the same time, authoritarianism is coming up worldwide. I believe it's being come up so that we can purge and clear a lot of the nonsense, but it can only exist as everything I've read, everything I've studied. And guys, my first degree is political science, international affairs, and constitutional law. So my mind is blowing right now. And I come from generations of Supreme Court attorneys. Yeah. But what I'm seeing is only this authoritarian rise can only exist if we stay in a place of fear and anger. That's what it feeds off of. And it does not exist. It doesn't even, it's not even on the radar. If we all come from a place of love, kindness, care, and understanding, even if we completely disagree with each other, that's okay. But that wouldn't exist. We're no longer giving that, we'll call it pseudo power, as you say, away if we come from a state of love.
Right. It's not about agreeing, it's about alignment. And so you and I can have we can all have different opinions about things. That's no big deal. We all have different perspectives. But if we're in alignment with love and compassion, if we're in alignment with embracing the highest and best within us all, then that creates a field, and that is a field of love, which is why we're here on the planet. We're here on the planet to perfect our loving. We're not here to get anything and attain things and to acquire stuff. We're basically here to perfect our loving so that we become the fiats of divine love on the planet. And so even if we're in disagreement about certain things, if we're in alignment with why we are here and we're absolutely activating that vibration, as we've just mentioned, then tyranny and authoritarianism cannot remain in that frequency. It can only remain where there's fear or hate, only. And if people are afraid, oh my God, what's going to happen? Or if they hate, then they're actually creating an energy of totalitarianism and Nazism and all the things that we've seen in history. But that's why divide and conquer works for fascism and totalitarianism. Divide and conquer people, always create others. Those people are creating the problem. Those people are creating the problem. But if people understand there aren't any others, it doesn't exist. That's a figment of our imagination. We really are spiritual beings emanating from the source of all creation. There is no other. There's only one presence, one power that looks that never repeats itself, so that diversity is included in the whole tapestry of life. There's no snowflake alike. There's no leaf on a tree alike. There's nothing alike. So that which appears to be different, called diversity, is built into the program. And so we're talking about consciously being in alignment with love. And if we are, we become the birthplace for the next stage of human evolution. So that's our spiritual work. How deep and how well can we love?
All right. So I've got a, do I call it a personal question? I'm going to go personal question or quest or query. I don't even know where to go with the quo with that, where we're going with this show. What we've been finding with this show, and when I first spoke to you, we were probably the only show on the block. Now, every kid, mother, father, brother, son, daughter, grandma, grandpa has a show like this. And the way the YouTube algorithm has worked, if you don't make that title grabby, people aren't watching right now. And we've tried to thread this needle, and I'm actually pulling back from that, going more to a place. Last year, I went all to a place of love. Our show numbers went down. I went to a place of this is what's coming. And then that grabbed people's attention. It went up. However, the question is, am I flirting with an energy that can actually create a discordance in the field rather than something that is in greater alignment?
Well, I think what you're doing is, people are addicted to certain kind of energies. So basically what you're doing is you're kind of what we used to call sneaking the spinach into the ice cream. You you're kind of
Well,
leading
we
with
are
what
absolutely.
yeah, you're leading with what they want, but you're bringing them to what's real. It's like a child, like a parent with a child. The parent knows how to lead the child to something better than candy for breakfast. And so it's a very similar thing. So I don't think you're creating negativity because once you have them land, however you get them into this field of a joyful, loving, embracive conversation, it can capture them. Now, it's not going to capture everybody because a lot of, some people are addicted to negativity. They're addicted to fear. They're addicted to worry. It gives them a kind of a temporary chemical rush that's not long. It doesn't last long, which is why they have to keep going back and get more and more and more. But ultimately, there's a burnout factor in that because it doesn't have any sustenance. If it's not of love, it's not of peace, it's not of beauty, it's not of harmony, it's not of unity. There's no sustenance there, and eventually, it creates a condition where people begin to ask higher questions. So I understand the algorithm and how it works and why people gravitate towards negativity, but ultimately, the universe is progressive and it's going to push people right into asking a deeper question because ultimately human beings, as Fannie Lou Hamer once said, will get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Woohoo! So, okay, this is going to sound like a negative question, but I see it as a huge positive. It's something that you faced, it's something that I faced. And now, is humanity facing? Are we going through right now a dark night of the soul?
That's an interesting question. I never really thought about it on the mass scale like that. As I look upon the authoritarianism that's around the world in different countries, I mean, America, as an example, is kind of mimicking some of the totalitarian aspects of China or Russia, following in that seat. And at the same time, there are many other people in either other countries that are not following that. But the algorithm and our news has us focused on primarily Russia, China, and America. But there are other countries that aren't falling in that way. But because we're so large, as in terms of the gross national products of our economy, it could be you could argue that there's kind of a dark night happening in these major venues. Um, but I still, yeah, so that's probably somewhat of a yes. But the Dark Knight always has a powerful silver lining in that it makes us readjust our identity. And at some point when we move out of the Dark Knight, we become changed. When in fact you look at the rise and fall of totalitarianism, whether it was Mussolini, whether it was Hitler, or anybody else, there's always after that a great sobering of consciousness and the statements like, we should never let this happen again. Let's be conscious so that we don't allow this. And so when you look at a country like America that's never been invaded, ever, and many people in America don't even understand what fascism is because they've never experienced it firsthand. You have immigrants that have come in running from it who know about it. But Americans, you know, the biggest thing they've ever happened is a civil war when they fought themselves, and of course the 9/11 situation where the jury's still out where that came from, so they never really had face to face dealings with fascism or authoritarianism or totalitarianism or that type of thing. So it might be a dark night where people will wake up and smell the roses or the fertilizer of the roses, so to speak, and say, "Wow, something's happening. We better wake up." You know, and I think that is not to say that this shadow of control hasn't been here for a long time. You know, it's been more sanitized with suits and smiles and ties, and you know, now it's just blatant. It's just blatant. So I think the blatantness of it is a positive because certain things can't be hid under the rug anymore. You know, things before could be hidden under the rug. Oh, you know, this doesn't exist in our country. Racism doesn't exist in our country. Homophobia doesn't exist in our country. You know, now it's nothing's hidden. And so that's a beautiful thing in terms of the Dark Knight. You can see stuff and say, "Wow, that's interesting." You know, that some he really said that. That person really said that. You're really banning books? Really getting rid of history? You know, we can now see it. And so, because of that, it's a dark night, but it's a dark night that's revealing something that was hidden for a while that's now being expressed and exposed.
Thank you. So if we were to go at Agape, first off, you have people who've been through the fires, and I'm talking the fires in California. And I didn't even want to ask you for an invite last year because I was like, you need time. Everybody needs time. You have people gone through the fires. You have people, beautiful people who are transgender, who are LGBTQ, who are of every color under the rainbow. What do you tell people who are going through I will bleep it, but a shitstorm right now? What do you tell people to be in that more, I don't want to say toxic positivity, but to watch where their vibration is during this time?
Basically, I've been basically speaking, doubling down on the love of all humanity and every life being precious, regardless of how an individual is identified as themselves, whether it's straight, gay, black, white, whatever the case may be. And what's happened, what I've noticed, is that that which is trying to be eliminated is becoming stronger. It's like with the elimination of Women's History Month and Black History Month and Japanese History Month and Hispanic History. You know, it's like all these groups are like doubling down on it. They're like becoming more expressive in their particular culture or ethnicity. It's like that which is trying to be damped down has become more powerful. That's what I've noticed here in California. It's like, oh, we're going to double down on this parade. You know what I mean? We're really going to express Women's History Month because
Yeah.
you know of the trying to damp down on the feminine. You know, and so I think it's like people who were just not, I don't want to say sleepwalking, but just matter of fact moving through life suddenly said, what? We're not going to celebrate women anymore? What? They start celebrating women. We're not going to celebrate our Latin brothers and sisters. They start really celebrating really high. So I think that which has been trying to repress a lot of these energies have made those energies even stronger and not disenfranchised, not separated from other people, but it seems to be creating more of a unity among people. I know there's like again, whether you're right, left, that doesn't matter to me. I'm more of an independent kind of guy. I've noticed that there's a lot of underground Republicans and Democrats getting together. You know what I mean? And people had never talked before are now coming together and having meetings as to how to deal with the totalitarianism that's arising. And they weren't talking 8 months ago. So this dark night, as you're calling it, has fueled more of a unity consciousness, and I don't think that was planned for.
And again, I'm not going political, but there was just Bernie's traveling around the country, an independent, and was
Right.
just in LA and in your neck of the woods and drawing quite
And Coachella, he went to Coachella, and
hello.
people screamed their heads off for him.
So that should say something right there. So are we in the birth canal and something big and beautiful and amazing is coming of this? We get to, forgive me, when I was with my wife for our baby's birth, it was miraculous, and we had to deliver early, and we asked our baby to come early, and she said, literally we come early. We had till the next day for her to come, and she did. But we danced. We literally danced our way through this. And you could see we were in a hospital, but they let us do it. You could see on the machine, I can't believe I'm sharing this on air, but you could see on the machine when each contraction was coming. I'm going to cry. Each contraction was actually, in a sense, celebrated because it brought you closer to that newness. When they had her, quote unquote, sit down and rest, everything went chaotic. We had to get back up and go with the dance and be in rhythm with it and allow it to be birthed, and something miraculous came of it.
I think that's a fantastic metaphor. And I think that if people start to look for evidence of new life in the evidence of what's emerging, rather than looking for the evidence of that which is decaying, which is easy to find. You can turn on pretty much any news station and you can see the reporters reporting from an old paradigm. But if you look for the evidence of that which is emerging, you'll find it. I mean, at this time in human history, you have a car that can run 800 miles on a chip. You know what I mean? It's no electricity, no gas, nothing. You have a water machine that produces water out of the air. Free. You have free energy systems that are now emerging. All of these are a part of a paradigm that's been squashed for years, now seeping into society, you know. And so so that means a global economic system at some point will be changed because our economic systems now are grossly immature because they're based upon a non-renewable resource called oil. And so that means there's this debt built into the economic system. Well, when these other technologies start to emerge in terms of free energy, free water, et cetera, now you have an economy based on not debt, but abundance, which proffers more abundance and golden age for people. So we're right on the precipice of that. Now, of course, old paradigm is still trying to keep those things from emerging, but it's eventually it's not. I mean, it's like you go back to something. I remember years ago reading, going through the library and finding those little microchips of, I think they're called fish something, the old newspaper clippings. And one newspaper clipping said, the end of society is near. Wild mustangs are becoming extinct. There's too many people for the mustangs that are being born. And then a car emerged, an automobile, a horseless carriage emerged that took us into a new paradigm. And so we're at a place where, you know, we're looking at non-renewable resources that are running out, but it means that there's a birth of a new paradigm, and it'd be a paradigm of abundance. So I'm just saying right now, right this moment, there is a solution for every issue. And at some point, it's going to explode. So what we're looking at is the our lesser brothers and sisters. I mean, younger brothers and sisters, not lesser, but younger, are trying to get as much as they can get from an old paradigm. But the new paradigm will emerge based on our ability to look for the evidence, hold the frequency of love, not create bad guys in our mind, and let the God times roll.
God times. Love it. If we turn on the news, what I used to call the negative worthless stimulation. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes it's something I use for duck and cover. but how do we go to a place of focusing on our own personal growth or soul growth, or dare I say, even mastery, when we're seeing that before our eyes?
Well, first of all, we have to know what we're looking at. It's two things. One, obviously we're in a simulation of a condensation of thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, points of view that's simulating life. It's not real life. That's why we call it the world of appearances. So first of all, we realize that we're in a simulation that most of us is invisible, not even really here. We're like an avatar within a simulation playing this game. That's one. Secondly, in the simulation, whenever you see the negative news, that's a call. I teach that is a call from society for us to pray. Just like if a friend of you calls you and says, Michael, I've just got a diagnosis with diabetes, or just got a diagnosis with cancer, or whatever. Will you hold me in prayer? You're going to say yes. You're not going to identify them with that issue. You're going to basically hold them in prayer and begin to feel and to see their wholeness and their well-being. So when we look at the news, that's a societal call for prayer. It's not something to get us all alarmed. Oh my God, did you see what happened? You see what they're doing over there? Oh, they just dropped a bomb. Oh my God. I mean, obviously that's bad. That's negative. That's immature. Human beings still killing each other. That's a very immature state of consciousness that has become normalized. But that's a call for us to pray, to look at that diagnosis, to look at that diagnosis of fear and separation, and to see the great wholeness that's hiding within that. The same way you would do for a friend. If a friend said, "A doctor told me I had cancer," you would see them whole. In the same way, you're to see society whole. You should see an affirmative outcome. And in so doing, you create a kind of a field that allows that energy to not touch you. You're not in it. You're in this world, but you're of the higher frequency. So you're becoming a conscious healer of that which you see. So that's what we're all called to do for people who are becoming conscious. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but it's a simple thing to do. Now, if everybody opted out every day to a degree, just opt out of the world that you see on, just opt out. Just as you get those things on the computer sometimes, it says, "Oh, you can order this and you can opt out anytime." You just opt out every day. I'm opting out of that world. And you begin to see with your inner eye the beauty, the love, the peace, the wholeness, the abundance, the joy. You opt into that frequency, then you become a place, a vibrational condition for the emergence of what's seeking to emerge.
Thank you. So I get lots of visualizations and weird stuff as I'm speaking with you. It's part of the game of being Michael. And I'm sure you have your own visualizations and things that you get. So first, as you're describing it, and we're as you called it, a simulation. What was a simulation of a condensation? And I was seeing us being on a motherboard. And we're all chips on the motherboard, and it's communicating. One chip is communicating with the next chip, and we're living in this simulation on this two-dimensional chip-based world. But if we're more than two dimensions and we're going, instead of the fear-based thought on this chip-based board, we're having a higher frequency, and you use the word higher level thought, then all of a sudden you're going up off of a two-dimensional board. You're going into something more three-dimensional. Actually, we could go five-dimensional, but we'll call it three-dimensional. But I'm going to say it's shaped like a brain. And in that brain, you can have a link that is above one level. And you're actually the old expression, it was probably in The Secret. What is it? Myelinated superhighway, which you think about, you bring about, but you also create this bridge. As you're going to a place of love, you are literally physically, energetically, but we'll call it physically, creating a bridge to a new possibility through your thought. And the more that you have this thought and you realize that all of humanity is having this one, in a sense, simulation with this brain experience, because we're all in the same simulator. I know we each have our own simulator, but we're going to call it for simplistic purpose. You are literally rewiring, hot wiring a new level of reality beyond that two-dimensional chip plane that you were on when you read that news.
Absolutely. And that particular idea that you're tuning into, it already exists in the quantum field. You're downloading it. It's already happening. It is in the field of infinite possibilities. It already exists. So you're raising your awareness, going to where it already exists, and then downloading it into expression. You don't even have to create it. You can call it co-creation, or you can call it a revelation, but it's already happening. And you're able to see it, vibrate with it, and then bring it. And when we look at some of the great masters on the planet, they weren't caught in the simulation. They were into I and God are one, not as a religious context, but as a reality, you see. And we're all called into this frequency, and no one's left out.
How do we thank you? How do we live more in this frequency, especially as I'm assuming your audience, certainly the audience here, feels so deeply. We're empaths. You're an empath. Everyone who's following us, we feel things so deeply. How do we go from feeling these sensations to feeling that sensation?
Okay, the answer is in the question. It's like empaths will pick up on all the frequencies. And so we have to become sensitive to the higher frequency. And so becoming sensitive to the higher frequency, that's where spiritual practices come in, where we're in our regular meditation, we're in our regular prayer, we're in our regular study, we're in our regular hanging out with like-minded people. We begin to vibrate with the kind of people we hang out with. And so we learn to disassociate with individuals that are complaining and blaming and bemoaning one's fate all the time or pointing fingers. We absolutely create a space for us. This is why we go to spiritual community. This is why we tune into the show. So you're actually bringing yourself into a vibrational frequency of a tuning fork that's vibrating at that level as a spiritual practice. So you just notice how you set up your house, how you set up who you hang out with, how you set up your spiritual practice. You actually create your own environment. And what I like to say to people is you become a spiritual astronaut creating your own environment. Like an astronaut goes into space, but they have their own environment. They have their own oxygen, you create your own environment. So everywhere you go, you're in the environment of the frequency you want to live in. You even do little tiny practices like, before I go into this room with these people, what frequency do I want to experience? Oh, I'd like to experience peace. So you go in, you touch the frequency of peace, and then you bring it with you. Don't look for it. You bring it with you. So instead of picking up vibrations, you're imputing a vibration. Now, that came to me many years ago when I was, this is a long time ago, I was visiting someone in the hospital, at Kaiser Hospital on Sunset Boulevard. I always remember this. And the individual was experiencing cancer. And so I went to visit her, but she was in a ward of all these people with cancer. And so I was walking through, had prayer with her, and as I was walking out, I decided to take the stairs. And by the time I got down onto Sunset Boulevard, I felt such negativity in my being. I had this suicidal thoughts. And I said, what is this coming from? And I saw this bus coming down the street, and my mind said, if you throw your body in front of that bus, you could commit suicide and be out of here. And I said, why am I thinking this? And I realized I picked up all the vibration of everyone who was in the cancer ward. They were ready to leave their body. And I realized my empathy was picking up the vibration. And I retrained myself to not pick up vibrations, but to impute vibration. And so empaths have to learn how to radiate the vibration they want to live in rather than just pick up frequencies. And so that became a very valuable lesson for me. And so I don't drop my shield, so to speak. I only drop it if I'm in a counseling session and the person is having difficulty expressing their emotions, something. I'll just lower and feel it and say, "Oh, you're experiencing X, Y, and Z. When you were a little kid, this happened," or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, I'm not trying to pick up vibration from anyone. I'm I'm in a blessing field. I'm radiating love and goodness. And that keeps me from picking up all the things of the world. And I can tell if I get tired, I'll start to pick up stuff. This makes me redouble my nap time, my meditation time, my hydration.
And I have the studio door just opened. My wife just let the kitty cat in here. He likes to do interviews with me. Actually,
Mhm.
I'm going to go grab my kitty bed. I'm going to give it a 10-second pause. Thankfully, we're not live on air. And I have an important follow-up question. Hold on one.
Get that animal, get that animal, beautiful, loving animal. Absolutely.
He only comes in when the interview is good. When the energy is great, he wants to be there. If not, Meowsers, do you want up?
You know that old joke between the dog, the difference between the dog and the cat, right? You know that story.
No, no, please go for it.
A dog and a cat make their transition, and they go into the realm of heaven, and the individual gatekeeper, whether it's Saint Peter, whoever, the Lord, whoever, is interviewing the dog, and says, "What kind of life?" She says, "I was true, I was faithful, I was loyal, I was very protective of the house. I did everything for my owner." And the dog, and the present says, "Come on in." And they looks at the cat and says, "Cat, what kind of life do you live?" And the cat said, "I think you're sitting in my chair."
Yeah. Nice. You hear that, Meowsers? I love it. And they are tuning forks too. They are
Absolutely.
absolutely tuning forks. How do we and this is a complete and total side, but when you were saying that, I've had a series of boo-boos in my life. I have twin titanium rods through my femurs, twin titanium rods through my hips. If you flip me upside down, I am a tuning fork.
Vibrate, literally.
Quite literally, TSA, I would be a tuning fork if you
Right,
looked
right,
at me
right.
on the X-ray. How do we come out of our own, forgive me, cancer ward? We come down the stairs, we go outside on the street. How do we get back to that state fast? Or even better, how do we do as you're saying so that we can impute energy before we go into such an environment? And it's hard today. It's hard to know. You can go on, oh my God, LA freeway. You want to talk about road rage in the past? You're vibrating at this energy that's just pure craziness. So how do we put ourselves in that higher state before we put ourselves in those environments?
Absolutely. I think that if very quickly, if someone were to think about any infant in their life that they love, just place their attention there for a second, your heart will open. You'll think about this sweet being. It's a cousin, it's a baby, it's a new baby. You just had a new baby. You think about how much you love them. Your heart opens. And in that open-hearted space, you begin to embrace everyone in your atmosphere, or you embrace the atmosphere that you're in right now from your open heart. So you're actually using the little infant as a talisman for opening. You breathe into it, you expand that feeling, and then you walk with that feeling. So you're actually using someone you love very deeply to have your heart of love and compassion open, and then you give yourself permission to radiate that. You radiate that to everyone you see, even the individuals where it becomes visually difficult to see the love in them. You're still radiating from an open-hearted space. And so it does two things. One, you're imputing energy, and two, that imputation is creating a vibrational field that's also becomes protective for you because you're vibrating at a different frequency. You're not vibrating at the frequency of fear. You're vibrating at the frequency of love. Now, love is obviously the most powerful frequency. And you can't be touched by anything less than that. So it's a matter of doing that on a regular basis so that you create a new set point for yourself. Love, joy. You create a new set point that you begin to develop a new normal. It's like I have a normal feeling of joy and love. When I wake up, I'm grateful. It's just my set point. So when things happen, so sadness may pass through the field. It'll pass through, but it doesn't become my normal. It becomes, oh, you know, um, friend of ours just passed a couple of days ago. A good friend of ours, her brother passed suddenly. And so the sadness went through. I was feeling for her because her and her brother are very, very close. And it was sudden. He was not sick. There was no preparation that he might be leaving. He was hiking, had a heart attack, he died. And so the sadness and it passed through my family, passed through my daughter, passed through the woman I'm talking about, but it's still in my field. The field that is predominant is love. I love her, you know. The field that's predominant is love and joy, and the sadness is there. I don't deny the sadness. But it's in my field. You see what I'm saying? Of a larger field of love. So my set point, my normal point is love and gratitude. Other things can pass through without denying, but they don't take over necessarily. Does that make sense?
It does. I want to go to forgive me, a dramatic example or two here and see how we can use energy. Um, so many people in my School of Mystics or on YouTube have written in saying, I'm a federal employee. I'm scared out of my mind. I'm being beaten up. I can't even say anything on my computer. I can't speak to coworkers. My coworkers disappear. I don't even know if they still exist anymore. And so they're scared. They're scared even before they go into work. And then you could take somebody, for instance, the student who went in on his last visit to immigration to take the test for to become a U.S. citizen, and he's hooded masked men come in and take him away. How do you go into these situations and stay in that state of love, that higher state, and face that level of fear, or I don't even know what's greater than fear that you could be feeling if you don't plug in at that state?
You know, it is. I'm looking at this from two ways. One, us witnessing it. You know, we're witnessing what's happening in the world, and be aware that this type of thing that's happening in the world has isn't it has been happening for a long time, and it's been happening to different people. You know, different segments of our society have been living in that kind of fear all the time. And now it's happening to larger groups of our society. And so as an individual that's witnessing it, we learn to hold that state that you and I have been talking about. Now, the individual that is now it's happening to, you know, as you say, they're going into the immigration office, they're coming back from a trip, they're being pulled out of line, they're being sent these holding places to possibly be deported. Okay, so they have to double down on that, and they have to open themselves up to see. You have to open yourself up to the inner guidance, the inner intelligence, the inner intuitive faculty that is difficult to touch when you're in fear. When you're in prayer, your intuition will tell you, don't go over there right now, or stop, or answer this way. You know, you'll get a different kind of guidance of how to live in occupied territory. You know, when you look at Yeshua ben Joseph or Jesus the Christ, you know, he was in occupied territory with the Roman Empire that were very totalitarianism and very authoritarianism, divide and conquer, blah, blah, blah. And he gave certain teachings in order, because everybody, you know, they were in occupied territory. They could be killed and crucified any moment, not just Jesus, but other people. And he would say things like, you know, he gave him a spiritual practice. He said, be of good cheer. He said, in the world, there are trials and tribulations. In the simulation, there's all kinds of Mexigots going on. Be of good cheer, for I've overcome that world. I've popped out of the simulation, but I had to do it through cheer, forgiveness, and love. So again, it comes back to where we're living. And then you can be guided as you get your, you know, we're telepathic, we're intuitive, and those faculties have been dormant in many for years. Now there's a resurgence in the understanding of telepathy, and the understanding of intuition, direct knowing, but you cannot get there through fear. Sometimes in crisis, it'll happen for you when a moment you think not. But if you have a certain level of spiritual practice, you'll get an intuitive hit as to what you should do. As many people that you've just described, there are other people who were able to bypass a lot of that because they were guided. The droids you're looking for are not here. You know, they were
Oh,
able to get
yes.
through because of their connection with the presence. But all of this that we're talking about, what you just said, the people that are going through this is going back to the beginning of our conversation. This is a moment in which decadence, that which is not in cadence with the fundamental harmony of the universe, is screaming so loudly because it's dying. And so there's something trying to happen here. And more people are now waking up to the fact that there is injustice. There is a lack of compassion. There's a lack of love whether you call it totalitarianism, authoritarianism, Nazism, whatever you want to call it, that is screaming so loud right now. Whereas people before were like, no, this doesn't exist. What are you talking about? This doesn't exist in our country. What are you talking? That only exists in China. That don't exist in El Salvador. That don't exist what are you talking about? Now it's like, oh my God, what happened? What are you talking about? He wasn't even an immigrant. He got sent away. What are you talking about? So it's what's happening is a big, gigantic wake-up call. But we still have to hold fast to the higher frequency to be guided as to what to do. Everyone has a different doing. Everyone are not to do the same thing. But if we come from the higher frequency, we are called what we are to do. And everyone can do something, even though it may not be the same thing.
It brings up an important question. Is this a time? There have been times where it was the most important thing to be the monk in the cave and to vibrate at a certain frequency. But is this not the time of the monk in the cave, but the time to, I'll call it, as you were talking about, an astronaut, be an intronaut, go inside, feel and hear, and then broadcast or do something out here as well?
It's a combination of both. And everyone has something to do. Some people are in the legal system, just really going toe to toe with the trying to throw away the Constitution. You know what I mean? Going toe to toe with, you can't throw away the Constitution just because you want to. You know what I mean? There's some people who are doing legal stuff. There's some people who are doing protest kind of things. There are some people that are allowing their environment to be places of safe havens for people that have not broken any laws. They just have different skin colors, different ethnicities, different, ways by which they're trying to become citizens. So everyone has something, and everyone has to ask their higher self, what is it that mine to do? Now, I was having a great conversation with Rabbi Brous, and we were having a really good conversation, and we were also talking about this theme that totalitarianism cannot exist in a spirit of love, and that one of the most revolutionary things to do right now is to make sure you know all your neighbors and you develop a neighborhood of love. And she gave a great story of how she decided to enter into this pact with herself to make sure she knew her neighbors, regardless of what the political persuasions were. None of that mattered. Just, we live in the same neighborhood. We should know each other. We should love each other. And she goes out and she sees a guy across the street. She's been living there 10 years or so, maybe he has too, and she never even spoke to the guy. So she says, "Hey, how you doing?" She's taking out her trash cans. "How you doing?" And he says, "Hey, how you doing?" They start to have a conversation, and he says to her, he knows she's a rabbi. And he says, "What are you preaching about this week?" She says, "Oh, I read this beautiful article about the epidemic of loneliness, and I've done all this research, and I'm going to be speaking about the loneliness and how to overcome it." And he says, "What article?" And she breaks down the article. He said, "I wrote that article." And she said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I was on the research team at the university. We did the research and wrote the article about loneliness." Now she's living across the street from this guy for 10 years, never spoken. And now this whole dynamic of love and neighborhood community has opened up. He wrote the article she's studying to preach on. And so it became that becomes a kind of a magnification in the whole neighborhood. I was picking up the trash in my neighborhood a couple of weeks ago. I have a tendency to do that. I have a little bag when I'm walking, and I don't like litter. So there's a lady down the street, and for a minute I was a little embarrassed that I was picking up trash. She's looking at me. I'm picking up trash. I did it anyway. I picked up the trash and put it in trash can and kept stepping. Next couple of days I come out, she's down at the other end of the block picking up trash. She's doing it. So there was a contagion of that kind of thing. So the point being, where there is love, we love our neighbors, you know, and it becomes very difficult for authoritarianism to sneak in. It can only sneak in when there's fear. You start to look at your neighbor weird rather than that's my neighbor. Oh, I don't know about them. But we create a neighborhood of love. We start to create a city of love. We create a nation of love. Then certain things can't take root. They can only take root in fear. Can't take root in love.
I had an interesting experience a couple of days ago. I do weird things like you, and certainly I'm picking up the trash. And Jessica's always my wife is always going, "What are you doing?"
Get your gloves. Get your gloves, please.
Totally, totally. And she's like, "Why are you putting it in the car? I can't just leave it there." But it's our clean car.
Right.
But when I go through, we have a bridge here. This little pay tool, and I always it's this guys. This isn't about me being great, nothing of the sort. But I always pay for the person behind me, and I always tell the person at the toll booth, please send them love, please send them love. And so I pay a few days ago, and I started to go over the bridge, and there's the bridge is blocked on the other side, and so there's this big behemoth pickup truck behind me, and he pulls up next to me, and a guy rolls down the window, and it's someone who a very big hulking guy, tattoos and everything. And I'm like, oh God, but I'm coming from a place of love. And he wanted to say thank you and how touched he was, and went on and on. And that's the game
That's the
we get
game.
to play.
No, that is the game we're playing to come out of the simulation of separation. Well, I do that too, but I also like sometimes we'll go into a restaurant and I'll spot a couple or somebody and
Cool.
I'll anonymously pay for their meal. And it's anonymous. I'll say, do not
Totally,
say
totally, totally. And
who's
that's why I'm
paying.
like,
We just watch the reaction. What?
yeah,
Who's paying? Well, we can't tell you who's paying. And it just changes their whole vibe. You know what I mean? Somebody's loving them, somebody's thinking about them. And it's a beautiful thing when we ask, how can I serve? How can I love? How can I give? How can I contribute? If we live in that question, we pop out of the simulation of lack and we become a vehicle for the overflow to move through us because we're asking a higher question. Not just how can I protect myself, but how can I contribute? How can I radiate? How can I shine? And it could be as simple as paying for somebody behind you on a toll booth or a restaurant or picking up some trash or whatever. There's another group of people on my block and a lot of people moved into this house and they look kind of eclectic and interesting, you know what I mean? And I did just, so finally, I just speak to them and so finally one of the guys comes up to me and he says, I go to Agape. I said, really? He says, oh yeah, I do it all the time. I'm not there, I'm live streaming. He says, I'm a part of a group that we are having a big rally in Washington, D.C. next year to really recast a vision for our nation. And we want you to be the main speaker.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. And I said, really? And his group is bona fide. It's like a real big group. But I remember when they all just moved in, it was like, this is an interesting group of people moving into the neighborhood. I didn't have any judgment. It was just eclectic, and everybody looked different. And I just said, and now they're very, they've revealed themselves to be a very substantial aspect of the neighborhood in terms of beauty, in terms of love. Just stop judging people and just love
you're,
people. It
you're
makes everything.
motivating me.
Yeah.
I've said hi to the neighbors next door. I've actually told my wife I want to give them flowers. She's like, well, that's kind of weird. And we do move in a few weeks. I'm like, I feel like giving them flowers. I probably will do that now. They make the most amazing music, and they have a Cuban flag in their
Uh,
house. And
yeah.
and and to me, I just want to give them a hug and listen to their music and hear the love that they're sharing in the world. Because
Right.
everybody is sharing love, I believe, in their own way. Everybody is trying in their own way. And I could be completely wrong, and I'm going to stay in that belief no matter what.
Listen, we break down the walls of separation to the best of our ability, create spaces of love, and then because we're quantumly entangled and we're one with each other. If we just lift each other up, it changes the whole fabric of the neighborhood, and then that becomes contagious to other neighborhoods. You can change a whole city with just some 10, 12 dedicated people who are unwilling to get caught in the simulation of separation, you see. And that's why these kind of programs are worthwhile and wonderful and spiritual communities. Doesn't matter how big the community is, but people are coming together to vibrate at a higher level changes the whole construct because everything is vibration. There's nothing solid going on. Everything is vibration. And the highest vibration always wins, you see.
Thank you. So, is this then a cosmic setup? Is everything being set up? Is every, oh my God, thing actually, bon Dieu, here to serve us and set us up for a higher level outcome?
Well, that's the statement. Everything works together for our good. The universe is progressive. The cosmos and the multidimensional universe is always expanding to reflect and reveal the infinite nature of the living one. That even when there's a contraction, I mean, that new telescope that people are looking through now and seeing the edge of the universe, they're amazed that the universe keeps expanding. Even when there appears to be a contraction, it goes out again. So there's a constant movement of expression and expansion of the infinite nature. So everything is working together for our good. Now, if you want to get scriptural for a moment, it actually says all things work together for good for they who love God, and they who live according to the divine purpose. Meaning, when we consciously participate in this expansion by loving, this grand presence called by millions of names is not a man in the sky. It's a presence. And we understand our purpose. Our purpose is to perfect our loving. Then things speed up in terms of working together for our good because we're consciously participating in that frequency. It's not hit and miss. It's like, this is how I want to live my life.
So, like group intention, then, and like group prayer, or any of these group events that you do that I do, um, is thinking of others at this time. Is it even more important than just thinking of the self?
Absolutely. The first level of growth is taking care of yourself. You learn how to go in, have your basic needs met, make sure your body is healthy, your mental body, your emotional body, your family. But that's a setup for asking, how can I contribute planetarily? In other words, you put your own oxygen mask on first. So you're taking care of yourself. You're not just giving from an empty cup. You're giving from a full cup. And then you take care of others. That's karma yoga, and then what happens is in that karma yoga, you realize, wow, there is no other. There's no other. That individual is actually an extension of me. We're one. But your thinking of others then leads you to that radical iconoclastic revelation. He just breaks down all of the different structures of separation, and you see, wow, there is no other. That was an illusion. We really are one. It's not just a prose or poetry or some fancy scripture. It's a reality through thinking of others in a very positive and harmonious and loving way.
And we do this even or especially when we see, I don't pick on anyone, a leader or leaders or group that is acting to the contrary of anything we believe in or see, even or especially for them.
Absolutely. I used to do workshops with co-workshops with Ram Dass. You know, he'd fly me over to Hawaii, and he used to have a practice of taking somebody that he had difficulty with and put that person on his altar. So I remember when the United States got cajoled into going into Iraq and bombing and killing and stealing, and he put George Bush on his altar so he wouldn't demonize and hate. He had Buddha, he had Jesus, he had all the good stuff on there too, but he would put on someone that he felt may have been working against society in an interesting way. And so yeah, if we have somebody we're at odds with, could be a friend, it could be somebody we need to forgive, it could be a political person in the world that's doing some things we don't agree with. It's a call for prayer. It's a call to like look and find the Buddha in them, to find the Christ in them, to find the God in them, even when it's difficult. Because if someone doesn't do it, the activation may not happen quickly enough. We can affect that part of ourselves in that person. And sometimes we're actually looking at unhealed aspects of our own being and we're projecting it on, they're standing as a great mirror of all the unresolved issues that humanity has. They're standing up, like reflecting it. It's like the difference between superheroes and villains. You know, if you look at all the genesis of those superheroes and villains, they all have had like negative stuff happen to them. Superman, his planet blows up, doesn't know his parents. Batman's parents get killed. You have all these other people. The only difference between the two is that the villains said, I'm going to get somebody for this. And the superheroes say, I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else. Same event, different consciousness. So we look at the villains as people who are like projecting all that unhealed stuff that we may have within us. So if we look at them as a, here it is, you become curious. If somebody's doing something negative, for real, you ask the question, wonder how they got like that. And as soon as you ask that question, you start to see their humanity. And then once you see your humanity, at birth compassion. And now you can pray for them because you realize they weren't born a bigot. They weren't born someone who hates women or whatever, or hates a so-called immigrant. They had to be imprinted some kind of way. Yeah, they had to be hurt some kind of way. They had to be brainwashed some kind of way. So what do? You ask the question, develop compassion, pray, you're free from the simulation of hate. And now you've made a difference in your own soul. And then you make a difference in that which you're calling the other, which doesn't really exist.
I've got the visualization right now of taking whoever that person is and shrinking them down into a baby, into an infant, and putting them in your arms.
Yes.
And telling them it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Or maybe you are loved. You are safe.
Yes. It's okay and you're okay. Yeah. You don't have to prove yourself. You're all right.
Thank you. And I think that's huge. How important is it to look at our own shadows at this time, to look at those elements? Because as you said, you want to talk about a word of as above, so below. When we look around us, it's not a blame game, but what you're seeing are things we get to heal on the inside of ourselves.
Totally. It's a self-forgiveness game. You can only see what you are. If you lift somebody up and they become a celebrity in your mind, you're actually celebrating that part of you that might be unactivated, and you're projecting it on that person. So you have to own that light and realize that what you're looking at is you. In the same way, if you're seeing a lot of darkness in someone, it may be the unhealed area in your own life that you haven't reconciled with, you haven't forgiven yourself about yet. And so you're seeing it on them. You look around, you see all these negative people all the time. And you have to turn that mirror and look at yourself and say, okay, why is that disturbing me? Why is that bothering me so much? Maybe there's some work that has to be done here, in the shadow of our own sun that's shining through the unhealed areas, creating a shadow. We have to heal it. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to embrace it. We have to love ourselves in the midst of it until the shadow reveals itself as just a lack of light. It's not real. It's just the lack of the luminosity that's shining through.
Do you watch, and do you recommend people watch or not watch that NEWS right now?
You watch it with awareness. I don't watch it every day, personally. I tune in enough so that if I need to speak truth to pseudo power, I have enough information on what's going on in the world, but I'm not going to watch it every day. And, pretty much the news stays the same, and then they do reports on the news, sub reports on the same thing they just said 2 days ago. It's like, to something else, to the next thing happens. But I would say not become addicted to it and not let it be an arbiter of reality. Don't let it speak to you of truth because much of the time it's opinion. You don't even get to the facts. I remember when I was going to school in English class, we had to learn the difference between an opinion and a fact. So when you did look at the news, you knew whether that was somebody's opinion about a fact or was that an actual fact. So today, there's so much opinion when somebody's presenting the quote unquote news, you can't even get to the real facts of what happened. Even in sports, I'll go look to see who won a game, and I got to read through the person's what they did and what they said and what kind of shoes they had on and what they did before the game and their opinion about their girlfriend. And I said, no, no, I don't want to know all that.
What's
Who
the
won the
score?
game? What was the score? Don't give me. I can go to YouTube and look at the game and get my own opinion. But that's the same thing about so many things. And I think today people cannot discern between an opinion and a fact. So they'll get hypnotized by whatever news reel they're looking at and thinking that's truth because they don't know that newscaster just gave an opinion. The opinion is not reality, it's just their opinion about reality. What is it that actually happened? What did the person actually say? What did they actually do? Let me form my own viewpoint about that. Don't tell me what my viewpoint should be. But many people have just given away their power to the reporter. And as I've said over the years, they're actors in many cases. They're just reading something. I remember one time being in the East Coast, and I was in a news. I was on the news teaching about something, and I was. It was funny to me because before the cameras went hot and everybody was in there talking, their real self was speaking. Hey, Reverend Michael, how you doing? Yeah, I tuned into you. Blah 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 blah. And as soon as it got hot, they became a different person. They. I said, what? I mean, they started saying things and reporting on things that had nothing to do with their own viewpoint, which I knew their viewpoint. So I realized, wow. I mean, I knew this before, but it was like, wow, they're acting. This is an act. This is the news feed that they're working for. And so this is the act they have to show while they're working for these people. It was kind of funny to me. So I'm going back to your question. I think you can watch it, but you have to watch it with awareness. And then you have to know when you move into prayer, when you say, that's an opinion. That's an opinion. That's different than what's really happening, you know.
How do we even discern? I call this now the disinformation age that we're going into, which I think drives us even more inside. And I think that can be a benefit in disguise, but a benefit nonetheless. How do we become more discerning then during this period?
Well, two things. One, I believe that you have to have some kind of introspection, meditation practice that allows you to get information directly from your soul rather than from humanity. And then two, I always advise people to make sure you have different places where you're getting your news from. Don't just rely on news coming from America. You know, America is one of the top three censored nations in the world. So you're not going to get it all. You go to other sources around the world so you can get information coming in from not just one space that's split up into five, six stations, but it's still the same thing coming in split. So you're being hypnotized, you're being brainwashed. So, go to your soul. I said this a lot during the pandemic, during different issues do not listen to the external authorities. There's one authority. I'm telling you, if you do your inner work, that still small voice will become so loud because it will be the only voice you're listening to. It will become louder than the voices of humanity, and you will be guided. But people have, what's the word? They're just giving their power away to external sources, and they have forgotten how powerful they really are. You can know anything you want to know. I'm telling you, you wake up, try 7 days of waking up at 4 a.m. Just wake up at 4 a.m., 7 days in a row, become very still, and ask a question to the universe about something you want to know. And in a few days, you will start to get the answer. It'll shock you as to how clear it is. And you'll be guided and you'll say, wow. And then you'll go out and you can actually prove it. You know, George Washington Carver used to wake up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. And he would ask Mother Nature, different flowers, different plants, what was their purpose? He got clear answers. Then he'd go into the laboratory and prove it. People thought he was a scientist. No, he was a mystic that proved things scientifically. We can do the same thing. These people that we have studied over the years, the only thing that separated them from us are their habits and practices. We can do the same thing. If I'm tussling with something, I'll just wake up early, sit, ask the question, and then it dawns on my awareness. Oh, wow, I got it. Thank you. I challenge people to take back their power. Wake up, ask the question, or be grateful, or be thankful. Watch what happens to your mind.
I love it. I'm going into the sweet space. I do my automatic writing real early in the mornings. And I love bathing in that sweet space. But I used to actually go out, lived in Colorado, and I'd go out running before sunrise every morning. And you knew by the season, you knew which flower was coming up when, what was going to be the next one to come up. And you knew so much by being in that space of stillness, that space of silence, that twilight space that you're talking
Yes.
about.
Yeah. It's free. You don't have to pay $8,000
Yes.
for a seminar.
Yeah.
I'm not putting seminars down, but it's free. You just go right outside, put your feet in the soil early, be still, ask the question that's haunting you. You will get an answer from your soul. Yeah.
You're talking about meditation. Is there one more practice that you feel is essential during this time, whether it's about mastery, whether it's about survival, anything?
I think the basics, it's always some form of meditation. The basics are asking liberating questions. Instead of asking what's wrong, you actually ask, what is it I have to give? You actually ask what's trying to emerge in my life. And then a nice form of meditation to break free from the simulation is, okay, you sit, you have an intention. Your intention is to wake up. Start with that intention. I want to wake up from the sense of separation. Two, you observe your body, the mind, the emotions, the sounds. You just look at it without interference. Then you give yourself permission to observe yourself observing. You don't ask how to do it. You just say, I'm willing to observe myself observing. You start to, little by little, you'll pop up and you'll see yourself observing. Now, why is this beautiful? Because the person that's observing is often the personality construct. But when you observe yourself observing, you've popped out a personality, and now you are more you, your pure awareness. Now you're more in contact with divine mind, pure inspiration, not filtered through your personality, but just coming into your awareness. You get inspired, you get wisdom, you get guidance. And then what happens? It becomes infused into your personality. You go back into the world, but you have the eternal in you. That's just a brief description of something that people can practice.
Thank you. What's your morning look like? What do you have a routine that you do each morning?
It's become unconscious competence, so I don't really think about it. As I look at it, as I'm laying in bed, I become conscious. I consciously smile. I consciously just smile to stimulate tonic chemicals going into the body as I'm waking up. Amplify my immune system, get the coherence of the brain, it stops the aging process. Then when I stand up, I put my hands up like this, and I become grateful that I'm alive. Oh, I'm alive. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. Then I surrender to life. You can call life God, you can call it the presence, whatever. I surrender to it, and then I open myself up like this, and I invite the power and the energy to handle all my assignments for today. Now, my assignments are one, those on my to-do list, and my assignments are anything that's going to come into my environment that I don't even know about today. Somebody's going to call me. They want some assistance. They want some help. They want an answer. I don't know the things I have to respond to. So I ask for that. That's what I do. Then I'll go into the bathroom. I brush my teeth, wash my face, I put cold water. I splash my face with cold water, brush my teeth. I go into my kitchen. I make warm water with lemon, minerals, um, Zetox, zeolite that pulls the stuff out of your body. And I make a little concoction. I drink that with systemic enzymes. I make a special tea. I sit, and I'm not going to do a long meditation here. I just sit and just honor the presence, maybe 5, 10 minutes. Then I go to the gym and I work off the body temple. Then I come home, do my shower, all of that, get my clothes ready. Then I'll do a formal meditation. And that meditation is minimum 22 minutes, but it's determined by what's on my calendar for the day. If I have a long time where I don't have to do anything, the meditation will be longer. I'll get a nice sweet spot. Wow. And then I'll go do what I do. And then my life is peppered throughout the day in between appointments with moments of meditation or prayer with the staff, that type of thing. Go home. I don't have any solid. I make a smoothie before I leave the house. I don't have any solid food until midday, and then I have light dinner. And sometimes I try to eat fruits and stuff during the day just to have the proper nutrition, things like that. So that's kind of the general, and it can change depending on what's going on during the day, you know.
I love it. Beautiful. What brings you, and thank you for sharing, what brings you the most hope or excitement for the future at this point?
You started earlier about there are answers to every issue that already exists. And I'd been following this one guy who invented the chip that goes into a car that you don't need oil, you don't need gas, you don't need electricity, you don't need a battery. This one chip. Yeah, you should Google it. Anyway, he's a young African man, and interestingly enough, for some reason, somebody tried to assassinate him a few times. But anyway, he was trying to bring this to market, and because of his fear of his life, he had to work with the Chinese government. So they took him in. So they're coming out with the car. But I think about him, and I think about this other man who um, he created the machine that's bringing water out of the air, and he put one in Flint, Michigan. So water was free. It just comes out of there. It's so pure. It was destroyed by they say a water company destroyed it. So they built another one. And this is what happened. The gangs in that area formed a truce to protect the machine 24/7 because their mothers were getting the water from it. So now there's like this truce with these big gangs. They protect the water machine, and all of these families are now getting free water. And now that's going on. That's going around the world. I have one of those machines, by the way. So I'm not speaking anecdotally. I bought one. And so when I think about these things that are emerging now, as I said, the economy is eventually going to change from an economy of debt to an economy of abundance in our lifetime. I'm very hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic about it all.
Thank you. I want to know more about this machine. It makes me think though of the original Gene Roddenberry shows of Star Trek,
Yeah,
and and how the world was based because you could go and explore. It was about exploration. It wasn't about going to fight the Klingons. It was
right.
boldly go to explore the world because it was more of, I'm going to call it an artisan civilization, a
Yeah.
civilization where people were artists and creators and actors and painters and drawers and scientists. all ascending, whatever that
Yeah.
means, bringing
Yeah.
out the best,
Yeah. It's
not
heaven.
worrying about, yes, heaven on earth,
Yeah.
rather than a lack consciousness.
Right.
Moved beyond that.
Yeah. Listen, you can go on, you can Google it and buy the water machine right now. They're for sale. Just put water out of air and you'll see the different manufacturers are now trying to get it to marketplace. You can buy one, put it right where you get fresh air in your house. And then if you ever have a drought or the supply chain can't deliver water, you got your water. All you'll need is electrical outlet.
And on that note, and then we'll start to wind this down. What have you heard about free energy then?
Same thing. You can basically, for less than $300, you can get the materials from a hardware store and rig free energy for your house, Tesla style. It's from Tesla, not Musk Tesla, but real Tesla. And so if the power ever goes out, you have free energy.
Can I ask, have you done this as well?
I have my electrician coming over to do it. I have the materials.
Very, very cool. All right. Where can people go, Michael, to find your work, to find out more, to find your podcast, to find everything you have to offer, and to find out when to say free energy?
Here are the 4 places. One, you can go to michaelbeckwith.com. That's my private website that's always under development. It'll show you, where I'm at, what's some of my own products. I have something called Adaptive Zen products, which have green powders. I have mushroom powders. I have really good organic stuff for the body temple. It shows you where I'm speaking. You can go to agapelive.com. That's the website for my community. You can tune in and watch me speak every Sunday. You can go to the university and take classes, agapelive.com. You can go to my podcast, Take Back Your Mind. It's wherever podcasts are shown. And just like this beautiful Inspire Nation podcast, watch it, subscribe. It's changed the algorithm one person at a time. So I have different people on every week. We have great conversation as we're having now. And that's how you can find me, basically. Yeah. Oh, I got a big Instagram page as well. When I say big, I mean I put inspiration on there every day. Some kind of inspired thought or video.
And we'll put all the links down below. I know I'm speaking here, so it looks funny that I'm pointing, but we'll put all the links down below as well. Any last words you want to share with people, impart to people, give hope to people, anything for everyone today?
I want people to have a realization that they are not insignificant. They are powerful beyond measure. There's so much power within them that with every insight, every revelation that occurs, they become radioactive. They become contagious. People speak a lot about contagion of viruses and things like that. But your high vibration is contagious as well. And you can actually change any environment you go into when you wake up to the power that's within. I know that for sure. And now all of this is corroborated by science, by biofeedback, neuroplasticity, quantum mechanics. You are more powerful than your limited thinking. Feel into that. And of course, the highest vibration wins. Stay in the love, stay in the forgiveness, stay in the generosity, and watch what happens to your life experience.
Woohoo! Thank you so much, Michael. This has been beautiful. This has been amazing. Dare I say, this is exactly what people need today. So thank you.
Thank you, Brother
so
Michael.
Much.
Appreciate you.
It goes both ways, Brother Michael. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, stay in the love, and stay in the love, and above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this?
How can it get better than this?
Wow. Another beautiful, amazing interview. My head looks like it's glowing right now. I guess it's glowing with the light. What a special interview with Dr. Michael Beckwith to help bring us into the light, bring us into a higher state of beingness, even or especially during these amazing, interesting, challenging times. On that note, if you want to bring your energy up each and every day, I have a very simple way you can do it. Certainly, we have all the techniques that you learned in the show, but read a basic newsletter, something really simple and easy and pithy that brings your energy way up. dailywoohoo.com. I help bring your energy up each and every day, like an energy pill. More fun, more enjoyable, who knows? dailywoohoo.com. If you want to join a class, join a school that brings you up and helps you to live and stay at that higher plane, come on over to the School of Mystics, 4 Wednesdays each month, live and recorded, just as powerful on the recording. We have attunements to help bring your energy up. We have teachings, of course. We have group intention meditations. We have clearings and much, much more to help shift your energy and help you to live on that higher plane. If you want to communicate with your angels, with your guides, with your loved ones on the other side, come on over to automaticwriting.com. That's that link down below, automaticwriting.com, where we have live classes each and every month and a video-based program so you can literally click that button and begin channeling tomorrow morning. And how does it get any better than this? And Meowsers is saying it's time to go here. Maybe he wants to catch the next amazing show. So here's a link for Sir Meowsers to the next amazing show. Love you so, so much and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Love. I send you love. I send you love. I send you love. Right, Meowsers? Time for some food, right? Okay. Gotta get him some food. Oh, you're such a...